Joining me now is David Schoen, former Trump impeachment attorney, and Saul Wisenberg, Fox News contributor and former deputy independent counsel. Saul, could Trump still get a fair trial in New York if this Judge Merchan is still presiding over it?
Well, I think it's going to be difficult for him to get a fair trial in New York, irrespective of whether Merchan is presiding, because of the overwhelming hostility to Trump by members of the jury pool. But certainly Merchan is making it more difficult. You know, he wasn't chosen by random selection, which I find shocking. He was picked by the chief administrative law judge there, supposedly because of his great judicial learning and temperament. But I understand that, in fact, he's not that good of a judge and that he's very thin-skinned and has temperament problems. I heard that from a great lawyer I know by the name of David Schoen.
Speaking of David Schoen, David, Judge Merchan allowed one of the jurors to sit in the case despite obvious political bias. Watch this.
They had things on their social media posts that Donald Trump and his lawyers found troubling. The juror number one, had taken a video at a distance of what looked like a celebration in the streets of New York for when Trump lost in 2020. I think that was it. Mm-hmm. And it showed that she was biased, and there was some language that suggested that she might have a bias. The judge found in this case, in this juror, that this juror could continue.
David.
Listen, he agonized over another juror in the case who had horrible social media posts and finally only decided to excuse her for cause because she also wrote that Trump should be locked up. He seemed to think that was a close call, but he did strike her for cause. But people are wondering why the jury selection is moving faster than expected. It's because he's not properly exercising challenges for cause. He's letting people in who clearly have a bias. Listen, this judge has no business being on the case. We've said it before under New York, 22 New York's, CURR 100.3 E1D3. It's mandatory that he recused himself. It says a judge shall disqualify himself if he has a relative to the 6th degree who has an interest that could be substantially affecting the case. We know that the daughter has a vested interest in the case. We know the judge has an interest in making sure the case isn't dismissed. And now, to make sure that Trump never leaves the courtroom, that he sits there every day, we well know that the right to be present at the trial is the defendant's fundamental right under the New York Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, under the 6th Amendment. It's the right of confrontation of the defendant. The Court of Appeals of New York has said it can be waived. It's the defendant's right. But he wants to make sure he's not out there campaigning or speaking about the case. That's it.
Whatever happens, don't go out and go to Harlem and convince a lot of people that this is a total sham and that they should vote for you because you'll stand up for the working people. Can't have them do that, Saul. But right now, everyone, I think, and back to what I was saying in the angle, that I think everyone understands that in our country right now, it seems at least that Democrats and liberals have more rights, more leeway, more freedom than a lot of Republicans. And it's going to be impossible, I think, Saul, to persuade most Americans or even non-Americans that any Trump conviction will mean anything. So my question, long-winded as it is, how corrosive and dangerous is this?
Oh, I think it's very corrosive, and I think in particular this prosecution. You know, Laura, despite the wackos that you see on MSNBC that we've seen some clips of, there are actually quite a few liberal scholars who have very much questioned this prosecution. Jed Sugarman, who is a constitutional law professor, I think, at BU, has said as much on Twitter. Randall Eliason, who has written for the Washington Post, they're very troubled by this prosecution. Keep in mind, supposedly what makes this a felony is that Trump's attempt to interfere with a federal election. The DOJ, as you've said many times, not only did the Department of Justice under Bill Barr decline to prosecute, there's nothing that kept Merrick Garland's Justice Department from reviving this case. It was still within the statute of limitations. And Alvin Bragg's predecessor, declined to prosecute this case, and Alvin Bragg originally declined to prosecute it.
Yeah, this isn't a fair trial. It's not going to be a fair trial because it never should have been brought in the first place. David, a question that I had, and both of you know the answer to this, but I don't think our viewers do. There are two lawyers that have been seated in the jury. One is from a big corporate firm. The other is a civil litigator, I believe. Now, that could play both ways, could it not? I don't know much more about them, but to me it would seem that Trump might want one of those on this jury. It takes one, only takes one person to hang this jury.
Yeah, I certainly have to know a lot more about the juror than we know, and that is permitted to be known from the limited voir dire that they're doing. Generally, I would have said that's not a juror that I wanted on. I also am not sure how especially the big firm lawyer is going to take off this kind of time from work. But the bottom line is, this Jesse Wegman you quoted earlier certainly has it wrong. Trump's Fifth and Sixth Amendment rights, in addition to the First Amendment right, are clearly being violated in this case. He doesn't even know what he's charged, what the target felony is. And the judge proved that in his denial of the motion to dismiss when he said, well, the government's put forward 4 different theories, and at least 3 of those are okay. How do you defend at the same time against whether he doctored the business records to commit a tax crime or for an election crime? It's absolutely absurd. The gag order is absurd, but the judge is trying to cover a full circle. And I think we as lawyers have an obligation to speak out about this for this country and around the world. You saw this week, maybe, Liz Truss wrote a column in the Wall Street Journal saying the deep state will arise again unless we put a stop to it now.
Yeah, has to be big pain at the polls for the Democrats for trying to pull this one. David and Saul, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.